In this video, I will show you how to use the IBM Smart Cloud Enterprise to provision 3 instances of Big Insights. One will be the Big Insights master node, and the other 2 will be the Big Insights slave nodes. With these 3 instances, we will create a 3-node Hadoop cluster. From the IBM Smart Cloud Enterprise login page, I will click on Submit. From the Overview tab, we can see the instances that are currently active. Let me now click on Control Panel tab. And then we will click on Add Instance. Here we will select the data center. So I will choose the one for Markham, Canada. Now we get the list of images in this data center, and I'm going to scroll down until I find the images for Big Insights. We have 2 images for IBM Big Insights Basic Edition. The first one is a data node, and the second one is a master node. We first need to provision a Hadoop master node, so I will choose that one, and I'll click on Next. As a request name, I will put Hadoop master. We will choose as the server configuration the copper size, and we will change in this case the key. I have another key that I will use for this purpose, and the rest I'll leave the same. Then I'm going to click on Next. Now we get a summary of the things that I have selected, and now I click on Next again. I now have to agree to the license, and I click Submit. And now we have that the request has been successfully submitted, so I'm going to return to the control panel. From the control panel, we see that a Hadoop master instance is being requested. After waiting for a few minutes, eventually your Hadoop master will be provisioned and you will have the message for the status of active. If you click on that instance and then scroll down, you can see the details of the instance. So it's going to be using Red Hat Linux version 5.6. This is the IP address that has been assigned, and you need to remember this IP address because you will need to use it when you provision instances for the slave nodes. Then this confirms here that you are using a copper instance, which means it's a 64-bit instance with 60 gigabytes, and you can confirm here that the image is for IBM Big Insights Basic 1.1. From the control panel, we can also see the IP address of the Hadoop master. Let's now add another instance to create a Hadoop slave. So for the data center, we're going to select again Markham, Canada, and then we are going to scroll down until we'll find the image for Big Insights data node. So we choose that image and click on Next. For the request name, we're going to use Hadoop Slave 1. We're going to leave the server configuration to be copper, and for the key again, we're going to use IBM Cloud Raoul. And then I will click Next. Now here is where you need to input the IP address of the Hadoop master node. So the one we were using is 170.224.193.137, and then I click on Next. Then you get a summary of your configuration, and then if everything looks good, you click on Next again. You agree to the service agreement and click on Submit. Then you will get a message that indicates the submission of the request is successful. So then click to return to the control panel. And from there you can see the Hadoop Slave 1 is being requested. Later on it will say it's being provisioned, and eventually it will say it's active. Now we will repeat the same process to add another Hadoop Slave Node. From the control panel, we will click on Add Instance. For the data center, we'll select Markham, Canada. Then we're going to choose again a Hadoop data node image. And then we click on Next. For the request name, we will put Hadoop Slave 2. We will use copper as a server configuration. We will ensure the key is the correct one. So in my case, I use this one, which I had defined before, IBM Cloud Raul, and then I click on Next. Now for the public address, IP address of the Hadoop master node, I will use 170.224.193.1137 and then click on Next. After that, we get a summary of the configuration that we have chosen, and then we click Next. We agree to the service agreement, and we click Submit. After a few seconds, we get the message that the Hadoop Slave 2 instance has been successfully submitted, so then we go and return to the control panel. And now we can see we have a Hadoop master node and two Hadoop slave nodes. The two slave nodes are still being either requested or being provisioned. Now we can see that three instances have been provisioned. We have the Hadoop master, we have the Hadoop slave 1, and the Hadoop slave 2 instances. All of the three are active. If we choose the Hadoop master by clicking on it, and then we scroll down, we can see at the bottom in the Getting Started section useful information and links. So for example, it says here that you do need to have the IP address of the master node before you start launching data nodes, and that the data nodes will be adding themselves to the cluster automatically as they come up. Now over here, there are very good links that you can use. So now your master node for your Hadoop cluster is running, so you can see that by clicking on the Big Insights Web Console link. This will spawn another window in your browser and show you the status of your master node or your cluster. And as you can see on the bottom left side, all the components for Hadoop are running. And on the top right side, you can see that it says the total nodes is 3. So Hadoop automatically detected that there are 3 nodes in this cluster, and that was done when you were adding each of the slave nodes as you were provisioning them and providing the IP of the master node. Now going back to the control panel, these other links will provide you some other information about your Hadoop cluster, and actually they are all summarized on the first link, which is the Big Insights Web Console. The Big Insights Web Console provides you a nicer interface, while these other links are provided from the Hadoop Apache open source project, so the way they look are not so sophisticated. So for example, let me choose the first one for name node status, and then you get information about your cluster, but similar information as mentioned earlier can be found from the Big Insights Basic Edition Web Console. In this screen, you can also see that it says the live nodes are 3. So there are 3 instances or nodes in this cluster, including the master node. Let me go back again to the control panel, and I will leave these other links for you to try, but again, all of these or most of these are summarized in the Big Insights Web Console, which was the first link. Now let me go up to see the list of instances and let's now pick a slave node. So let's pick the first one, Hadoop Slave 1, and then I'm going to scroll down again to the Get Started section, and in this case for the Hadoop slave nodes, what you have is only a one link, which is the task tracker status. So I'm going to click there, and then it shows you this is the Hadoop interface. We don't have the Big Insights Web Console for the data nodes or slave nodes, and in this particular case we're not running any tasks, so all information is pretty much empty. So let me go back to the control panel. And now we have our cluster ready to be used. Okay, so now let's access the master node. We don't really need to look at the control panel from the IBM Smart Cloud anymore, but it would still useful to have the window for the web console, the big inside web console, open. So I'm going to leave this browser open with this tab. And right now we have that Hadoop and all components are started. But let's go and, in my case, use Putty to access the master node. So the host name, we will put the IP address for the master node, which was 170. In my case, 224.193.137. Then we're going to click on SSH, click on auth for authorization, and then make sure to add the key file. So I click on browse, and I'm going to use this file that I had already set up before. Open. Then I'm going to go back to my session, and I'm just going to put I'm going to save this session so I don't need to type these again later on. And I'm going to call this Hadoop master. I'm going to click on save, and now that it's saved I can use it for the future, and I'm going to click on open. I accept this alert, say yes. Then for the login, as any other instance in the Smart Cloud Enterprise, you use the IDC user and press enter. And now you are into your master node in Hadoop. So let's do a stop-all.sh to stop all the components of Hadoop since they had been started by default, and then we will start all of them again. So I press enter, and you can see it starts stopping the Jackal server, Uzi, Flume, and so on. So at the end of the stop-all.sh command, you see that the stop succeeded, and it shows you the components that it was able to stop correctly. And also for the fail components, it's empty, so it means there were no problems shutting down all the components. If we go to the Big Insights web console and then refresh the browser, it now shows you that the master node is down, so there's no so the web console cannot be displayed. Now going back to my terminal session, I'm going to start all the components using the start-all.sh command, and then we can see the name node, the data node starting, as well as the other components. So at the end, you should look for the message that says succeeded components, and then verify that all the components successfully started, and then for the failed components it should be empty. So again, we have the Hadoop cluster up and running, and let's go back and see from the Big Insights web console if everything is working again. So let me refresh the browser, and we can see again that everything is back up and running. Let's now test to see if Hadoop has been set up correctly. So let's run some commands. We will start with Hadoop fs-ls/, and this will show us the contents of the root directory in HDFS, which is a Hadoop distributed file system, and everything seems to be okay. Now let's just make sure that pig can be started. So I'm going to type pig and start it, and yes, we get the right prompt, which is grunt. I type quit to exit. I'm going to try hive, so I type hive, and it also works okay. So I'm going to quit from here, and I need a semicolon, and I'm out. And finally I'm going to try Jackal, so I'm going to type Jackal shell, press enter, and I have the Jackal prompt, and now I'm just going to quit. So things seem to be running okay in this cluster, and now you are ready to start working with other Hadoop components and maybe start working with MapReduce jobs.